What's going on, all you YouTube and Facebook Live fishing freaks out there? Appreciate you guys joining us here. Open up a little polar sparkling water. Not no sponsorship there. Pretty good stuff though. Right after this short intro, we're gonna get into some hot takes, some stuff that I think one major thing that I think has been on my mind that I think we as bass fishermen do wrong in the tournament fishing world. And we'll talk about that in just a second.
Gotta get your arms way up in a cast and set the hook on smallmouth bass, and then you'll understand. Gotta get your hands on a Shimano reel and a G-Loomis round. I bet you like what you feel. Step on the deck and give it a whirl. Hello, welcome to my world.
What's going on, all you guys out there? Appreciate you guys joining this episode of OnAnotherLine Live. If you won't care to get the word out, share this thing out. Appreciate it. I haven't been live in a couple weeks. Been doing a lot of fishing, which is, that's the deal. That's the whole point about this show, and the whole point about you guys watching is that, let's face it, where you like to fish, and usually when it's nice outside, I'm going fishing. That's why sometimes you don't see me live on Tuesdays, probably because I'm fishing. If I have service when I'm fishing on Tuesday, then I go live. But normally around here in Ohio, it's hard pressed to find service when you're fishing lakes unless you're on like the Ohio River or something, which, by the way, we're going to talk about a tournament I fished this past weekend, Kentucky Bass Nation out of Maysville. Pretty tough tournament, but it was a fun time. Yeah, Jeff, I've had a pretty good year so far. I cannot complain, man. Haven't won a ton of money in fishing tournaments, but I've caught some hammer fish, and it seems like every time I go out, I'm usually catching fish, which is the end result. So I'm headed to Lake Sinclair. I guess it will be the 1st of June, or I'm leaving Memorial Day, and then I'm going to fish Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then I'm headed to Lake Erie to do some walleye fishing. So I'll keep you informed of what we do up there, and I'll let you know what's going on. I did see some people that were up there this past week. Casey Kelly and his dad and brother, I believe, they caught some, I think a couple over 5 pounds. Right now, if you're going to Lake St. Clair, you can basically figure on bed fishing. Most of the smallmouth are either pre-spawn or definitely on the beds. And yeah, boys, what's up, guys? Erie in 5 days. That's going to be a fun trip for sure. But you guys heard me mention a second ago that I think we as bass fishermen in the tournament world do something wrong. And I am going to give you my my biased opinion here because it's mine, right? But I think, I think bed fishing in tournaments should be illegal. I said what I said. Here's why. If you're fishing an MLF style tournament where you catch and release right at the same spot, that's a different story. However, we as bass fishermen are constantly talking about conservation. We want the bass to get as big as possible. We want to be the lake as full as possible. And we want that lake to be full of fish that are obviously as big as possible. But we as tournament fishermen, we go out and we find these bed fish we find these fish bedding during the spawn when they're trying to reproduce and fill the pond with offspring so these things have a better chance of catching, we have a better chance of catching fish. But during a tournament, we go out and we as tournament directors and anglers and stuff allow people to bed fish and bring fish in from the bed. Now, how would you police it? It would be impossible. So there's no way to do this. But I think bed fishing should be illegal during tournament times because here's the deal. Let's just say that you go way up past Rich Creek in Yatesville, if you've ever been there, and you're looking there and you find a fish on a bed, and maybe this female is just getting on the nest. Well, here, from my very, amateur opinion, most fish or most, females, they bounce back and forth to different beds. The males normally stay there and they guard the fry and all that stuff. Normally the females are moving around. But let's just say that a fish is getting ready to spawn and we go and we catch that fish in the back of Rich Creek and we drive it all the way back down to the dam and weigh it in. We turn it loose there at the boat ramp. We've turned that fish, we've caught the fish in probably less than a foot of water, less than 3 feet for sure. And we're going to turn this fish back loose in, 20 to 25 foot of water. And yes, there's shallow spots and things, but are they going to find beds? Are there going to be beds there made by the males or whatever? Who knows? But it's just something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and it's really tough to swallow. And have I done it? Yes, I have done it. I am not saying that I'm holier than thou. I have went out and I found a fish on a bed and I've caught it and I've taken it and I've weighed it in. But as a conservation-minded outdoorsman, that is very, it has to be detrimental to the fish population. I think that it would be very neat to do a study on that where there has to be some kind of technology where there's like an RFID or something that you could tag a fish with. So let's just say that you go out and you catch a fish in Rich Creek or Shallow Creek and you drive it 10 miles down and weigh it in and you turn it loose. I would love to know what that bass does. Does it immediately go back up the river? Do fish know exactly where they're at? Do they want to go all the way back? Obviously, it would take them days to get back there. Some of the stuff like Troy Pennington a few years ago in a river rat, I know this for certain because I saw it with my own eyes. There was a guy that caught a smallmouth that was like 4.5 pounds out of the Ohio River, which is a giant. He caught it way up the river towards Gallipolis, brings it back to the Cold Grove boat ramp. They turn it loose there, and Troy Pennington catches the exact same fish the next day up by the Ashland Bridge, which is probably a mile. So this fish has traveled a mile in a day. Again, that's upstream. Pretty crazy stuff. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. It's very weird to me, Brad. I think you're right on there because, how much, casting for kids. That's the biggest tournament I've fished this year. Definitely going to be probably the biggest tournament that I've fished all year. It's $15,000 for first prize at Yatesville. 158 boats, which is a ton of pressure anyway. You get, let's just say that 20 of those fish came off of a bed or were pre-spawn. That's 20 fish that are probably not going to do anything for the fish population that year. Not counting the amount of people that have, that catch those fish to eat them, which whatever, it's your right. I'm not saying I'm not one of those holier than thou bass fishermen either. I pay my fishing license the same as you guys do. If you guys want to go catch bass and eat it, by all means, that's why you buy the fishing license. But I think that, so if you look at like Lake St. Clair, which obviously is one of my favorite places to travel on the planet, I believe the reason that their smallmouth population is so good there is that it's catch and release only until like June 28th or I think like end of June. And in Canada, you can't really even target them. Now, how do you say that you're targeting them? Well, I guess if you have a 7-foot medium light spinning rod and a Ned rig on the end of it, they could probably get you, I would imagine. But if you were just out there throwing a spinner bait and you just so happen to catch a 6-pound smallmouth and you were targeting pike, it's something but that you go up there, there's millions of largemouth, probably there could be billions of them. I don't know. There's a huge population of them. And I think it's because of conservation efforts up there. Now it does stink a lot of times when you go up there, and I'd like to catch I'd like to go up there in the 1st of May, the April. There's like 2nd, 3rd week of April, and I'd like to be able to put 5 fish in my live well and take a photo with them at the end of the day. And that's kind of selfish, but that's the same deal, right? I will be taking those fish off the beds, and I see why they're doing that. So I think I wish. And it's never going to happen because you can't enforce it. There's no way that unless you were right next to somebody and you saw them bed fishing, there's no way that you can enforce that they were bed fishing. And, it is what it is. $15,000 is a lot of money. And I potentially could see where somebody would try to catch as many fish as they could for that $15,000. Now, going out in a Tuesday nighter, and you're going to go out and you're going to, you know, beat up all your buddies, and you're going to win $185, and you got $240 in fuel in the boat. That's where I see going out and catching fish on the bed to be a problem, because, you know, how much is that $185 you're going to win worth when it comes to longevity of the sport of fishing in that pond? What's up, Andrew? Yeah, but yeah, I think it is third Saturday in June when you can target those fish. Yeah, so I think that's the deal. And like I said, the issue is that there's no way to enforce it. The more I think about it, you know, it's impossible. It's just a kind of like one of those deals where it's, you know, it's a gentleman's agreement at that point. You know, you just have to say, hey, no bed fishing. If we catch you bed fishing, you're going to be DQ'd. But again, there's no way to police that. It would just have to be, you know, don't do it. Because I think, again, I just believe that, you know, I don't want it to be like Minnesota. Minnesota has an opener for bass, kind of like Canada does, and it was just this past weekend. Like, I've been fishing literally in Kentucky and Ohio since the very first day of this year. January 1st, I fished a tournament with Brandon Buckner and Lewis County Lunkers at Grace, and I ended up winning it with about 7 pounds. But I've been fishing since January 1st of this year. I couldn't imagine not being able to fish during that time, January to now. Let's say it was like May 12th or something. That would be really extremely hard to take for me, but I think there's a happy medium there somewhere. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not a huge, you know, I don't know. We'll just have to see. Hey, Charlie, what's up, buddy? The hammer himself, Charlie Hewlett. Anyway, a couple of things. A couple weeks ago, I fished a tournament with Lewis County Lunkers at Dewey Lake. Never been there before. Was an extremely tough fishery for me, but I did see some things that I'd never seen in my life before, and that was fish spawning directly in treetops. And I'm not talking about like on a stump. I'm talking about in a laydown. There will be a big giant, I don't know, there will be a male and a female, or just the female in the nest, and they were extremely finicky. It was really cool, man, to see them though, because it was just like they were locked onto one branch of this big giant tree. Somebody, you know, they caught him. Charlie caught him really well, had a really good deal. Let's see here. Yeah, you're right, Adam. And there is so much to take into consideration there. For example, we were down. So sometimes raising the lakes, like you're talking about, actually helps the fish spawn, in my opinion, because what's going to happen is that, for example, at Lake Cumberland, saw some fish on a bed in a creek 1 week, go back the next week, and went back in that same creek knowing that those fish were still going to be on the bed, and they had raised the lake 2 feet. Well, 2 feet is a lot of visibility to have in a lake extra. So you couldn't see those fish anymore. So I feel like that, one, it's could potentially hurt the population because, you know, maybe the water's not as warm down there now that it's, you know, deeper or what have you. But it also probably is less popular or less pressure from fishermen on that spot. Jeff, man, those triple threat jigs are pretty daggone cool. I've caught a ton of fish on them. Brandon Klein, who you know down around your area, has he has a promo code. I'll just put it up here on the screen for you. It's just Brandon Klein. Imagine there, it's already still there, but it's just Brandon Klein. But that, obviously, I'm not affiliated with Blue Rock other than having Jesse on the show, and I've been buying the crap out of his jigs. I really like the 1099. The triple threat's amazing, My favorite triple threat so far is going to be the black one. I like the blackout, I think it's called. I've been, using a cut down net bait Paca Slim 3.5 on the back of it. I cut it down to the first appendage, and that allows me to have a really nice looking jig. Caught a ton of fish on it so far, and it is it's been a good deal. So if you want to get on there and check it out, I would definitely recommend that. No, I did not see that. That is amazing. That is cool. That is, I personally think the walleye cheaters got off too easy. I just think they did. So, I said that too. Old Hammer must be talking about Charlie. There he is right there. Mark Hickey in the house. What's up, man? I was going to call you earlier. I saw that Weta was selling some stuff up there at his shop. Has a 36 volt, 45 inch takeoff Ultrex. And I was going to call and ask you what that takeoff means, or maybe you could message him and ask him. Right? Is that where somebody got a boat, or they ordered a boat and it came pre-rigged with an Ultrex and they've just taken it off? Or is this like a used one that they've taken off? Awesome, man. Glad I guess I'm sure they probably sent you the C or E or GCX. Yeah. He had a really good deal on that thing. He had a Link 36 volt, but I want the Link. So just to give you guys an idea, I'll dig you into the knowledge that I've been digging into. I have an 80 pound thrust, 24 volt Fortrex trolling motor on my boat right now. The thing has been absolutely indestructible. I don't know how old it is. I would imagine it came new on the boat in 2006, I would say. And the only thing I've ever done to it is I replaced one of the cables, and that was because I was an idiot. I had it wedged up against the dock and didn't know it was wedged up against the dock, and I stepped on the trolling motor and broke the cable. That was my fault. But other than that, man, this thing's been great. I would not try to upgrade unless, if it weren't for spot lock and things like that. Do I use spot lock often? Not a ton, but would I like to? Sure. Especially like on the Ohio River, if you're fishing a spot, it's a great thing. But in Lake St. Clair, Lake Erie, places like that, it is an absolute game changer. But the difference is I called Chris Malone there the other day and asked him to quote me one, which I'm still potentially going to go buy one from him. I didn't know the difference between a Link and a non-Link. Well, I thought the non-Link meant that it didn't have iPilot, and that is not the case. So just to give you guys a little bit of knowledge that I didn't have, that you may have, there is a 36 volt, 45 inch. Of course, the inch is the shaft length, but the 45 inch is what mostly people put on bass boats. But the iPilot will allow you to, maneuver it with the remote, and it has spot lock and things like that. Whereas the iPilot Link will allow you to connect it to the quote unquote one boat network, which is Hummingbird's, Johnson Outdoors, basically network system, where you can connect it to your graphs and all of that stuff. And you can actually have let's just say that you are side scanning at Lake St. Clair. This is where I could see myself using the Link. Obviously I have the Solix on my boat right now. Let's just say we're side scanning on Lake St. Clair and I find a big giant rock pile that I didn't know was there. I can press and hold the screen until it marks a waypoint. And then I can tell, obviously the trolling motor has to be deployed at this point, or I can deploy it and then do it. But if the trolling motor is deployed, I can have my trolling motor go to that spot and spot lock, which is pretty cool. So I don't have to guess. I can do this spot maybe 50 feet from that rock pile, and I could press and hold on my screen, put a waypoint on there, tell my trolling motor to go there. The only thing that I see that comes into the negatives of that is, I guess, twofold. One of them is that it's more expensive. That Link version is a lot more expensive. It's like $500 extra. Now, There's another thing that I was just thinking about is that it uses an Ethernet port through Humminbird. Well, a Solix only has one Ethernet port. So right now I just have a Ethernet cable running from one Solix to the other, and it's networked. Everything's great. Matter of fact, it works great for what I have it. However, if you were to buy like a 360 unit or anything like that, you would have to have the Ethernet hub. And that's the same way with that link. You would actually have to buy that Ethernet hub, which is probably another $500. And then you're going to have it rigged and all that stuff. So I potentially am going to buy the link and then maybe just leave it unlinked until I can save up enough cash to put one of those Ethernet hubs in there. That is where I think, and I'm sure they didn't do this on purpose. They didn't want people doing it on their own, but that's why I think people that have Garmin stuff is actually a little bit ahead of the times and most other things. Garmin units use just straight Cat 5 or Category 5, Category 6 Ethernet cable, which is a computer cable. You can go straight to, wherever, Walmart, and buy a cable. And you can plug it directly into the back of that unit with it's called an RJ45 end. I know that because I'm a computer engineer by trade, but you just plug it in and you can actually take a small computer hub and put it in your boat and connect all those cables together, and you have a network that is cheap. You can have less than $100 in way less than $100. You're gonna have way less than $50 in this thing, and you can connect all of your graphs, including your pan optics and all this stuff. Matter of fact, we've done it to JR's boat, and I know it works great. It works just fine, man. It's amazing. So I'm kind of up in the air about what I want, but I think I'm going to buy the link. But it also comes in a situation where I am going to have to upgrade my batteries because I have a 24 volt system right now in my boat, and batteries, guys, are just like anything else. They're expensive. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. It's a great deal he had on that thing, man. Cole Willis, what's up, buddy? Really? What's up with that, man? Maybe let's see. That sucks. Maybe that's for sure. That's crazy. I never thought of that. But speaking of batteries, I am in the market to buy some new batteries for my boat. I have been affiliated with Odyssey Batteries for a better part of 5 years, and they are phenomenal batteries. I have zero bad things to say about Odyssey Batteries. They took a chance on me, sponsored my show here 5 years ago. I've used their batteries religiously since. Matter of fact, I bought 2 of them, put one in my Harley, put another one in my old Honda CB750 because I like them that much. They're lead acid AGM batteries, which is absorbed glass mat. Just means that there's fiberglass mats in between the cells, or in between the lead, I guess, I don't know what you call it, layers of lead in there, and the panels or whatever. And they've been great batteries, man. They've been phenomenal. They've got me there and got me back, but now they are on their last legs. I have 4 of them, and 2 of them are at the point where they're just fine, and then they lose charge about halfway through the day. So I thought I had some kind of like, I had something drawing power throughout the day more than my graphs. So my graphs, I know, are power hungry units. We've already had this conversation. They draw about 4 amps per hour, or 4 amps. So when they're on, so I'm running 2 at the same time. If I have them on, that's 8 amps. Now, if you have like a 100 amp hour battery, this is something really I, had a hard time wrapping my head around is, excuse me, how to know how big of a battery you need when it comes to lithium to power all your graphs. Well, it's really simplistic. Is you just get online and find out what kind of graphs you have, and it'll show the max amperage that your unit's going to draw while it's on. Again, my Solix draw 4 amps each. So what I did, you just go in there and you take that number. So I have 8 amps if they're running both at the same time, and you divide that by the amp hours. For example, if I have a 100 amp hour battery, divide that by 8, you're going to have about 12 and a half hours of battery life. So it will power both of those graphs for 12 and a half hours. Well, that's actually pretty good, right? Because there's a lot of times we're out there 12 and a half hours and it's all good. However, that does not take into consideration of your live well pumps that you're running off that same battery. It doesn't take, for example, it doesn't have anything else that you're running on there. If you're charging your cell phone, or you're running two power sticks like I run from Hewlett, it doesn't take any of that for in consideration. But if you're putting one of your graphs on standby and stuff like that, that's a different story. But one of the things that I've really dug into is there's hundreds of lithium manufacturers as far as batteries that are here in the United States. We got to figure that lithium is just like tungsten in the United States, and it's probably not, there's not mined here, so it's all coming from overseas, probably China, Japan, somewhere in that area. The lithium that I've seen, the most economically or affordable price batteries I've seen is the ionic batteries. I think for 100, I think it's 105 amp hour battery. I think it's like $7.99 or something, which is an astronomical price for one battery. But when you start looking at the warranties and things that these lithium batteries come through, or come with, like I think the ionic battery has like a 7-year prorated warranty. It's like 5 years or no questions asked, and there's a couple extra years on there. Maybe it's three years, no questions asked. But long story short, there's so many of them that are made out there, and I've seen some really cool batteries over the last 3 or 4 weeks in doing some research. I've reached out to some of the companies trying to get some people on, and I do have some things lined up coming up in the next couple of weeks about battery manufacturers coming on to talk about their batteries. One of them is Powerhouse Lithium. Powerhouse Lithium, one of the things that I noticed about their batteries that I really liked, they are, fairly expensive. They're in that normal price range that you see like Dakota Lithium and things like that in. Like they have I think it's a 100 amp hour battery, and it is extremely expensive. It's like $900. To me, that just it drops my jaw to think about spending $900 on a battery. These lithium or the lithium batteries I'm talking about here, they have a 15-year warranty on them. They have one of the coolest features I've ever seen on a battery, and I'm going to pull it up really, really quick. A couple of things. Again, this is no promotion here for this because they don't even know I'm talking about it, but I just want to show you guys what I am seeing here. So this is Powerhouse Lithium. Again, what I was talking about. This is a cool thing that I haven't seen from many other lithium companies. This is a 16-volt battery that's dedicated to run, excuse me, your graphs and transducers. For example, I've heard a lot of horror stories of people running their live scope off of their normal starting battery and draining their battery throughout the day. That happens. One of the things I looked at is a 16-volt graph battery. I'm like, 16 volts, man, you're just absolutely going to fry something that's 12 volts. Well, I looked online. My Solix is actually rated up to 20 volts. And people are claiming the higher or the closer you can get to that 20 volt range, the absolute most clarity you're going to get out of those units. So this is something here. But I'm going to show you the really most cool feature that I like about this one battery here. This battery right here. So this thing is 105 amp hour. You can see here, extremely expensive, probably one of the most expensive ones on the market. But I like this feature right here. We talked about having a jump pack already in our boat, which I do have one of those things. It's a lithium jump pack just like this. But I really like that this company has thought to put this thing inside of the battery. So let's just say that you're out there fishing all day and you have the live reels running and you have both of my Solix running and I'm listening to the radio and I'm powering 2 GoPros. And then it gets to the point where I'm going to run into a tournament weigh in and I go to crank my battery and we always get that and then it just clicks, right? Well, this right here has a jump start feature already in there. You just go in there and press that button and it gives you juice enough to start your engine and get back to where you're going. Obviously, if you're running around throughout the day, running from spot to spot, it's going to charge this battery. So, if you're just sitting there on one spot all day, it might be a little different. You might not need this, but this is actually a really cool feature that takes less stuff out of my boat. Stuff happens, man. So I'm kind of like, I'm with you on the spotlight, but I after seeing what graphs can do on Lake St. Clair this year, Kyle and I, when we had, I'm guys, you guys have seen the videos. There's going to be a third one come out this week. It's going to be the last day of St. Clair this year. We got 156 smallmouth in 2.5 days, 40 of them over 4 pounds. 7 of them 5 pounds or bigger, and 515 was our biggest fish. But we were in a spot that I was graciously given. And so, first off, I would like to address that really quickly. I've had a lot of people message me about spots on Lake St. Clair. The spot that I smashed them at this year was given to me, and it's not my spot. I didn't find it. So, if you don't get a response from me, that's why. I'm not going to give up the spot because it's not my spot to give you. But we knew this spot. We told about it. We went there, found some fish, but we couldn't catch the fish like we did the year before in the area we're in. So we were using side scan in the same area and found rock piles that were way more shallow. The rock piles we were fishing before were like 7-8 foot. And we go in shallow. I'm talking 2 to 5 foot of water in a rock pile, and we absolutely put the smack down on some smallmouth on 3 rock piles. We would literally go from one to the other, and we would maybe move the boat and make a cast, or we'd move another boat and make a cast, what have you. It was all about in those, how you brought your bait across there. But that's another thing I could see me using the link feature for, is that if I have those rock piles marked, then I could just have the trolling motor go there, and I could be tying baits, or I could be looking, grabbing something to eat or whatever. I think that's a really cool feature. Fish this past weekend, Maysville, the Meldal Pool in the Ohio River, Kentucky Bass Nation. Which, by the way, guys, if you guys are looking for a fairly local tournament trail that you're going to fish, I don't know what it's going to be like next year, but there's a tournament if you want to just try to get your hands in and fish a tournament and see what it's like. Ohio Bass or Kentucky Bass Nation is a really cool deal where you have a team tournament trail. I think it's like $155 a team to enter. And let's just say that you want to come out and fish, and the next one's at the Little Sandy Ramp. It's like June 18th or something. So when you go there and you want to fish and you haven't fished the rest of them, if you finish in the top 5, you automatically qualify for the championship, which is really cool. But I went down there, me and Kyle. I went the day before to pre-fish. I ran upriver, which I think was probably the detriment to me and Kyle. One of my favorite places to fish on the Maysville ramp or Maysville Meldal Pool is Kinnickinnick Creek. I like it a lot. But prior to that, when you get there, before you get there, there's a rock pile on the left-hand side. And if you guys are a river rat, you know which one I'm talking about. Right before you get this, probably 10 miles before you get to Meldal. Before you get to Kinnickinnick. I pre-fished upriver on Saturday. I went and hit every creek that I could get up in. Water was muddy. Everything was blown out. Water was about 2 to 3 foot higher than it should be. Went up in, first off, Meldal I keep saying Meldal, in the Meldal Pool from Maysville Ramp to Kinnickinnick Creek is 39 miles one way. I went up there. I didn't run all the way there. I hit every creek that I could possibly hit on the way up through there. Stopped in Cabin Creek. That's another one of my favorite creeks up in there. Went to the back where I like to fish, and there was already 2 boats back in there. So I was like, well, this is not good. So started, working my way up river. Finally get to Kinnickinnick Creek, and it was uber clear compared to the rest of the river. When I say it was clear, the river probably had maybe 6 inches of visibility on it, the actual main river. Up in Kinnickinnick Creek, from the mouth to the very back, as far as you can go, was 3 to 5 foot of visibility. It was stupid clear. I saw wolf packs of 12-inch spotted bass just cruising. I was like, they're just going to be in here loaded. There's just no doubt. So I went in there and fished. Fished just a couple trees in there, caught one keeper, looked around, saw a bunch more. I'm like, this is where it's happening at. I don't know if we want to make a 39-mile boat ramp or boat ride. I worked my way back, fishing those creeks again, fishing main river stuff again. The river was ripping, man. It was actually just putting it down. Water was muddy and things. Kyle and I basically just sat there on the ramp waiting on a fog delay and trying to figure out what we were going to do. We were either going to junk fish all day around the Maysville ramp, or we were going to run to the Kinnickinnick Creek. So we just, I guess thick-headedly said, screw it, we're running to Kinney. So fog delay, 8 o'clock or so before we're taking off. The tournament's supposed to start at 6:30. It's probably 7:30 actually. When we get there, when we're taking off, 7:45. We take off. It's with the fog, it takes us 50 minutes to get to Kinnickinnick Creek, which is, way longer than it should have, but we couldn't run full speed because of the fog. It was dangerous. We finally get in there and fish all the way to the back of Kinney. And if you've never been back there, it is an absolute plethora of things for you to pitch at. There's so much stuff back in there. We caught a ton of fish in there, like 15 spotted bass. Well, the spotted bass that we could get to bite were like 10 inches long, 12-inch size limit on the Ohio River. We caught a pile of them. Caught a lot of them on, pitching and flipping. Caught some on a wacky rig, some on a Ned rig, you name it. We didn't catch one single smallmouth or one single greenfish, a largemouth, all day. And I heard that from some other people too. We got in the back of Kinney and I threw a spinnerbait up in this ripple that comes out, and I ended up catching or hooked about a 6-inch smallmouth, and it ended up getting off. So that was the only other fish that we caught other than the spotted bass. I have actually. One of my favorite pastimes back when I was a kid growing up, I went to Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia for 4 years on a semester, and I met some really cool people there. But a buddy of mine, Casey Fields, that I met there actually lived up around Point Pleasant. But his dad had a cabin on the Elk River in Burgoo, West Virginia. And man, I tell you what, that was some of the most epic fun times I ever had in my life. I have never fly fished for them. I do have a fly rod, know how to cast one, but I've just never had the want to go out and try to catch one on a fly. I've trout fished with, the old rooster tail and a spinning rod on a trout stream out there in the waders. Still super fun to me. And I've caught some trout at pay lakes and things on accident. And I've caught some trout in areas of my life, here at Lake Vesuvius. They put trout in for the Wheeling Sportsman and the Kids Fishing Derby, which, by the way, this past weekend, I guess, went phenomenally. It was a good time. Wish I could have made it. But trout, I'm just not a huge fan of trout to eat. So that's why I don't target them, but it's absolutely fun and I love it. I'd say you guys are going right up in there for sure. Man, I think that 901S is actually designed for small hair jigs. I don't know. I don't know how I would. So my fishing style for a Ned rig may be totally different than yours. I personally, my favorite Ned rig rod is just an 852S NRX Plus. I like a little bit more backbone with my Ned rigs. I'm trying to cast those things a long way. I use a 1/4 ounce Ned rig 100% of the time. I never go any lower than that. I like that thing to be right directly on the bottom, and that's it. And I do believe, even with, unless you're throwing a really small one, I do believe that 1 power 901 is going to be probably too soft for a Ned rig. Again, I'm pretty sure that it's designed for hair jigs. That's right. There is an open coming up this Saturday or this Sunday at the Little Sandy Ramp, Lewis County Lunkers and the Big Fish Club. I think it's Hank Zaff and those guys, and then Brandon and that club. are fishing there on Sunday. It's an open. You guys can go down and get in. It is a team tournament. Drop some deets in the below here. Brandon and I will share it out. But I think it's like could be wrong. $50 a boat, $30 a boat, something like that. But Little Sandy Ramp, fire. River's been on fire, man. I tell you what, or has for some people. We saw, I think Brett Dillow and Michael Bops actually won the tournament down there in about 10, had about 10 pound or so. Aaron Strickland and Matthew Strickland ended up finishing third. They had 5 keepers. But back to my story about that tournament. I didn't catch a single fish in Kinnickinnick. We ran all the way down and jumped into Cabin Creek. The last half hour of the tournament, we had blanked at this point, and I just picked up and locked a tackle box spinnerbait in my hands, the one I've been catching the fire out of fish on, 1/4 ounce white and chartreuse with hammered blades on it, and I just locked it in my hand and threw it. I threw it for the last half hour, and I ended up catching 3 fish in the last half hour in Cabin Creek on a spinnerbait. One of them was a keeper. It's just the way it goes. We should have just stuck locally, or I should have, and the water was a lot dirtier in there. Maybe I think it was just, better for the bite. I think the water was actually too clear in Kinnickinnick, if that makes sense, because it's not normally that clear on the Ohio River. I like some fish, man, but I was not a huge fan of trout. Maybe it was how I had it fixed. One of the few times I ever had trout was they just basically, filleted out there with the skin on it and stuff, threw it on like a cedar plank and grilled it. And it was, I like the taste of fish, but it was the most fishy tasting fish that I've ever had. Like it was, and the bones were still in there. It was like so much work for a little bit of fish. That's why I don't eat them too much. Headed to Lake St. Clair here in a couple weeks, which, by the way, guys, I want to show you guys something here really quick that you may be interested in. I had a fellow reach out to me the other day and said that he had some, let me hop on here. So he wanted to know where I stayed at Lake St. Clair. Well, my thing is right now is that I stay usually at a hotel. I usually stay at the Hampton Inn in Detroit Roseville, and it's been a great place. But I'm always looking for. Let's see here. Let me find this link. I'm always looking for places to stay. I like Airbnbs and things like that because, one, it's all to yourself. You don't have to worry about people working out here. But I'll just show you this house here. This guy owns this house on Lake St. Clair. It's actually in it's on Anchor Bay. So this is it, the Totally Hooked Lake House. So I can give you a link to it or whatever. Directly right on the lake. Again, Fairhaven, Michigan. Really cool deal. It's a smaller place. I think it's a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. I could be wrong here. Let's see what it says up here. 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 1,200 foot. But new dock and stuff. I'm definitely going to look at this place, trying to figure. You can see right here in Anchor Bay. And again, if you're not familiar with Lake St. Clair, where this thing is at, let me pull this up so you guys can see. So here is Anchor Bay. Way down here, this is this is Harley right here. So you can see if you're planning on fishing the Mile Roads, which is way down here, this is probably not going to be the spot for you. That's a pretty good jaunt through there. That's probably 20 miles of run there at least. Probably farther than that, actually. But just wanted to show you guys that. If you guys are looking for a place to stay in the area of Anchor Bay, let me know. 7-2 on the tournament, $40 a boat, big bass included in the 40% or $40, 100% payout. There you go. That's Sunday, Little Sandy Boat Ramp. Go out there and have a good time. Still kicking around the idea of fishing an Ohio Bass Nation tournament at Indian Lake on Sunday. So if I don't go there, then I'll probably come over and fish with you guys. Well, that being said, guys, we're about that 45-minute mark. So I'm not going to keep you guys in here any longer. I got a few things coming out this week, including a third rendition or third episode of the Lake Sinclair fishing trip that Kyle and I took. I've got a couple episodes of OnAnotherLine coming out for Lake Cumberland, the Shimano Owners Tournament, and the Kentucky Bass Nation Team Tournament Trail down there. It's coming out there soon. So, guys, I definitely appreciate the support. Got a lot of things that are happening on my YouTube channel right now. As of right now, 4,233 subscribers out there. So you guys are that are out there coming from YouTube, I appreciate it. If you guys are on Facebook and you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/OnAnotherLine, I would appreciate it. I love to fish, and I am trying to make this YouTube thing work so I can actually fish a lot more, go to a lot more places, bring you guys more content, and get out and fish with you guys. So with that being said, appreciate it with the support. If you guys would share out my content, I would definitely appreciate it. Hey, Fred, thanks for joining, man. It's always good to have you. Yeah, right, man. Which, by the way, dude, I had the Stratus up on the big end the other day coming down the river, almost 73 mile an hour. That is getting it for my Stratus. Especially when I got 40 rods in there and probably 10,000 pounds of fishing gear and my fat rear end and a full tank of gas. That's getting it. Anyway, thanks for joining, guys. We'll see you guys next time, next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel. See you, Adam, man. Thanks for joining. Always appreciate it. You guys know the routine. Get out there and lean on. We'll see you next time on Another Line.